What is going on, everybody? It is Tyler here, and when you hear that rad music going on in the background, you know what time it is. That's right, let's get jumping right in to the Keyblade Master Podcast. So yes, guys, Kingdom Hearts is finally finished, and to celebrate, we're going to do a kind of end-of-summer movie podcast just to recap all the good and the bad films of summer 2017. Alongside me today, I've got my friend Nick.
What's up?
My friend Kirsten.
Hey!
And my friend Jordan.
Hi!
And they are joining me via Skype today just to kind of give a little insight on what they thought of the summer 2017 movie season, what they liked, what they didn't like, and, you know, ladies first. So, Kirsten, what would you say was your favorite movie of this summer?
I only saw 3 movies this summer, so...
Understandable.
So, the first one that I'm talking about is Cars 3.
Haven't had the opportunity to see it yet, but looking forward to renting it in the old red box.
So, I went with the kids that I work with for camp. So, I only really got to see about half of it. But what I did see, it went back basically to the first one.
Mm-hmm.
It had like the original kind of feel to it. And, you know, like the whole, like, him training, everything like that. So, I think that's why I really liked that movie.
Yeah. So it was one of the reasons you liked it was because it was like a good callback to the first movie.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought back.
Yeah, to me it kind of felt like the Rocky 3. It felt like the redemption story.
Yeah,
because
I got that.
Of how weirdly mixed and received Cars 2 was, because that was a spy movie, but it starred Mater.
Yeah.
And so now,
the thing with Cars 1 is that Cars 1 was like, I literally saw it in theaters, I'm not even kidding, 20 times. I dragged so many people to the theater to see it over and over again. Got every McDonald's toy, by the way, which I'm so proud of. And yeah. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Cars 3. So I haven't seen it yet, but I'm glad you like. Jordan, what did you think of Cars 3?
Haven't seen it.
You're in the same boat as me.
I'm bored to see
I haven't seen it either, but like I was kind of, as far as I go, I was kind of iffy on the whole thing because, you know, Cars 2 kind of, I don't know, I was trying to figure out what the series was going to do, and then Cars 3 had like that dark teaser trailer of like, is lightning going to fly?
I was nervous about that because that was the first thing.
There were a few parts where I held my breath.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie about it.
Yeah, there were kids at my camp too that were just like, "Is lightning dead?" And I'm like, "I have no idea."
Dang, that was.
I'll have to see this. Yeah, they kind of went for a dark turn, but like kind of what Kirsten was saying, I did hear some things about like it kind of calls back to the original movie, like it didn't veer off as much.
Yeah. That's one of the things I did see with the trailer. So Cars 3, you would say, is one of the greatest, like one of your greatest, like your favorite movies of the summer.
Definitely. It's one I would definitely watch again.
Moving on to our quiet friend in the corner, Miss Jordan. What did you get the opportunity to see this summer?
I saw Spider-Man Homecoming, and that was the bomb.com.
So you did see Spider-Man Homecoming, and that's segue into our like superhero point in the podcast. What did you think about it?
It had one of the best Peter Parker feelings that any of the Spider-Man movies had.
I agree 100%.
Most of the time when you get like that good of a Peter Parker, it's always in like the animated shorts or even just the comic books. But with that movie, Tom Holland is Spider-Man. Like, he did a fantastic job.
Definitely had the feel of it.
To piggyback on it, he felt like high school Peter Parker because the majority of the movie dealt with high school.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that Tom Holland plays a perfect Peter Parker. His Spider-Man though isn't perfect.
Yeah, his Spider-Man comes across like, I know what they're going for. They're kind of going for like he hasn't done this for a long time. Like he's really like he's kind of like the new superhero on the block.
Yeah.
So, but his I don't know, his Spider-Man comes across to me as kind of being what's the word? Less spectacular than the other ones and less amazing.
That's an excellent.
Yeah, like less amazing and less spectacular of sorts.
I did. Yeah, and that's the thing. One of the things that I had a complaints about, and a lot of people did as well. The the spider sense was not implemented in this movie.
That is very true.
Yes,
Which-
it wasn't.
A lot of people who saw it were very mad, like upset.
Like, I wasn't as mad, but I was actually very disappointed that it wasn't there.
And so, you know, they even came out and they said that, okay, we didn't implement spider sense in this movie. However, in the upcoming Avengers Infinity War, that's where it's going to take place, because what Spider-Man Homecoming was trying to do is, and I know we've seen it in every other origin reincarnation of Spider-Man, in the original trilogy and in Amazing Spider-Man, where he gets the powers, gets bitten by the spider, and then the sense is just there. I do feel like they had to go a little bit of a different route here, because Spider-Man was already introduced in Civil War. So we already knew. So because Civil War came out first and introduced Spider-Man, the audience is already the intent. I feel like the intent of it was, you know who Spider-Man is, you know his powers, you know what he can do, you know his personality. Here he is. Now here's what he's doing after Civil War. So not really, not an origin story, and not dwelling too much on the spider sense, because they were trying to tell a good Spider-Man story.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, because it was like one of those powers that people, because I think they do it quite often, because so like calling back to it, in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, what they did was they changed it up, and they were like, hey, like his web fluid is actually like part of his powers, like it's a mutation.
Yeah.
So they didn't have the web shooters. Now in the Amazing Spider-Man, they went back to the comics and they said, hey, we're going to put web shooters on you. But they also, if you notice watching The Amazing Spider-Man, the spider sense that he has tingles so much. Like in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, it happened, and then it was a scene that happened. But in Amazing Spider-Man, it happens so much. I think, I could be wrong about this, it's just my theory. I have a feeling that when they did Spider-Man Homecoming, Marvel was like, we're going to cut back on that and really not kind of worry about it, because the last Spider-Man did it a lot. So and then also, it kind of, this was my problem with it, because I noticed he didn't have a spider sense. It was like they replaced his spider sense with the AI in his suit.
They did rely a lot on the AI in the suit, which,
like, it was a good plot point, like, as far as the movie went, the fact that, yeah, he had to learn to be him and not have the suit to rely on.
Yeah.
But just kind of throughout the movie, like, it kind of, it was weird. It didn't feel like Spider-Man to me. It felt like Iron Spider to me the entire time. And,
that's kind of why I felt like this was probably my favorite, because Iron Man's my favorite. And for those that didn't know, he is the best, by the way. But I enjoyed it, not only because Tony Stark was in the movie, which, my dude, my man.
That's the only reason. The only reason.
Yeah, I love him. That's
lie.
the man
Don't
right
lie.
there.
Spider-Man Homecoming,
I went to
Iron
see, guys. I didn't see Spider-Man Homecoming. I saw Iron Man Homecoming, the Iron Man 4 that we've been wanting for so long. Anyway, getting off topic here. I love the suit because of the AI.
Also, let's take a moment, because not only was Robert Downey Jr. A big star power in the movie, but let's take a moment for our villain, Michael Keaton's the Vulture, who, I'm not going to lie, every time he was on screen, he stole the show. I know he's a Vulture and he stole things, but he stole the show. Every time he was on screen, he was amazing. Like, Michael Keaton is the man, and I was surprised they were able to get Robert Downey Jr. and Michael Keaton to be in the same movie and to not have them just steal everything.
I tell you what.
But they did a good job trying.
Oh, it was. Michael Keaton can literally play anything.
Yes.
He's played Batman, and now he's playing like a total opposite role in The Vulture.
Not even joking. He has something to do with wing people, because he's played Batman, then he was Birdman, and now he's Vulture. Like, he completely went from one side of the spectrum of flying rodent
He is
to
a
the other
flying
side.
chameleon of an actor. Brilliant.
Yes.
But
The trademark, because flying chameleon might be a thing.
yeah, so
might not be a thing yet.
But Spider-Man
Yes,
Homecoming, I think we can all agree. We all have our little gripes, and I think this is the case with everyone who saw the movie. Everyone had their little gripes. Everyone had their little complaints about it. You know, comparing it to the 5 other Spider-Man movies we had, which is a given. That's gonna happen. You're always gonna have people who compare it to the other ones. But overall, it really was good. It satisfied Marvel fans with a good Spider-Man movie. You know, we had some hints at other heroes that are, you know, may have not been mentioned. We got to look at a pretty rockin' suit at the end. I'm not going to say what it is, but guys, Spider-Man Homecoming, go ahead and check it out. But let's move on to flops of the summer. And my girl Jordan coming in with a good flop, The Mummy. My goodness, where do I even begin with that? Jordan, why didn't you like The Mummy?
I don't know, like, okay, so first off, like, I really do love the original Mummy cast, and that they were always very precise with everything they were doing. Like, they always had, like, that single mission of, like, okay, they know what they need to do.
Yeah.
With, I don't know, I didn't like the new cast. I didn't like the way they did the new Mummy. It wasn't appealing to me. They made it more of,
People need to stop trying to remake movies so much.
exactly, they made it more of like this sci-fi horror film instead of making it like The Mummy, like it used to
It
be.
worked well the first time. You don't try to change it. Don't fix something that's not broken.
Yeah, that was a big complaint that I heard about The Mummy, because I didn't see it, but I had heard people that have seen it and heard reviews about it and everything like that, and it was just about what I thought was, it was trying to be
trying
a
too
Marvel
hard.
movie. That's what
Okay.
was The Mummy.
You brought it
trying
up,
to do.
Nick. Here's why I didn't like
Yeah.
The Mummy. So guys, Nick and Kirsten, have y'all seen it yet?
I've seen bits and pieces of it, but
Okay.
I know
So-
just about all of it.
Okay, yeah. So Jordan and I didn't see The Mummy. We saw Universal had to trim down the title, you know, for obvious reasons. But their intended title, for those of you that don't know, was, we're Universal Studios. We have rights to every monster, including Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, and everything. And we're going to try to implement even those characters, including Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in this movie. And then we're not going to make a Mummy movie. And we're going to try to make, including all these characters in The Mummy. But we're going to call it The Mummy, you know, to kind of, you know, shorten things up a little bit. We're going to call it The Mummy
Take a breath.
as a hint into what we're going to be doing later on. That's what
Hey,
we
yeah,
saw.
it was basically, the executive board was just like, hey guys, remember how awesome the Avengers was? And you know how, like, what Warner Brothers is doing with the Justice League? Guess what we're doing? We're having the Monster Squad, but only the worst version of the Monster Squad. Because honestly, if you watch just the tangent a little bit, if you watch Monster Squad, that's a better movie crossing over with all of your monsters than this movie was trying to set up for.
And that's the thing.
So if they included all of these characters, why did they call it The Mummy? Like,
Because that
Because
title that I said was too long, so they had to condense it down, you know?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Okay,
the thing
that
is,
makes more sense.
Exact-
They just picked the one that they thought everyone would go and
and if they
watch.
would have named the movie that, yeah, it would have been a mouthful, but you know, it would have made more sense. Because here, I'm watching this movie and I'm going into it, like, I think for most of the movies this summer, I went in, you know, knowing how they were received critically by fans, all that stuff. So I went in, you know, knowing, okay, everyone's been saying this movie's bad. Let's give it a chance. Got Tom Cruise. I mean, how can it be bad, you know? So I go in expecting a movie about the Mummy. And in the beginning, I do have to say, you know, they discover the Mummy. They take the actual coffin and do all that stuff. I'm like, okay, this is going pretty well. Then the middle of the movie happens where things just took, it was trying so hard. The movie was just so blatant about saying, without saying, in air quotes here, hey, just a heads up, we're going to be making more movies. You know, so we just want to show you, we got a Dracula skull over here. Oh, you see this guy who Russell Crowe is playing? Yeah, he's Dr. Jekyll.
Remember Samuel L. Jackson in Avengers as Nick Fury? Well, guess what? We have Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll,
Exactly,
who is our
yeah.
Nick Fury. I mean, it's just kind of like...
They tried. The thing is, that's why I thought it was a flop, because people were expecting, they wanted to go see The Mummy, but they didn't. And that's why I think it was perceived so badly, because they wanted to see this movie and they wanted it to tell a good story and all this, but Universal was just trying so hard to force down fans' throats that, hey guys, we're going to be coming back, you know, with this movie, with that movie, and that movie. And they tried so hard to do that. Like, they would not rest until they gave every audience member a taste of what was coming. And that's why I didn't like it. Because even this is a good segue into Transformers and even the Dark Tower, which I know a couple of our guests had to leave, so Kirsten and Jordan, peace out to them. But my boy Nick is still here with us. I did want to go, I wanted to segue into that, which is why this is like the main point, the main point of this podcast, which is why I wanted to make it. And I wanted to do like a recap of all summer movies, but the three big flops from my eyes: Transformers 5, The Last Knight, The Mummy, and The Dark Tower. The Dark Tower book series was a series that involved, I think, somewhere between like 10 books. And even though I haven't gotten the chance to see it, I've read enough reviews to understand and put it in a group with The Mummy and Transformers. The Dark Tower tried to do this thing where it tried to set up a universe, taking a page out of The Mummy's book, trying to set up this universe instead of trying to tell a good story. And I can't stand when movies do that, because they're trying to copy the success of the Marvel Universe and even the DCEU. They're trying to copy that success so hard, and they're willing to do anything in their power to let audiences know it's going to happen. Nick, what do you think about this?
See, when it comes to those particular movies, so like The Dark Tower, I had a strange feeling The Dark Tower was just kind of, it was just I call them their movies. They're just movies that are made that are kind of filler, and they're hit or miss. A studio obviously has some kind of backing to it, and this is like, it could do well, and it's an experiment of sorts, but I wasn't going to be too, I wasn't hyped over it like some people were making it out to be. Now, those other two movies, Transformers.
That's what I don't understand. Okay. Even though, remember, this is Michael Bay's last film.
This was Michael Bay's last movie, and it's like, okay, it's Michael Bay's last movie. He could have gone out with a bang, and not to be a pun, because he's the master of explosions.
Yeah.
But he went out with that. Like, he just went out with the
light sizzle.
And I was like, oh yeah, like a little like slight sizzle. I'm like, where's the nuclear bomb going off? Because
what I defended Age of Extinction to the nth degree, because I really think that movie is good, because and this is the thing, it all goes back to storytelling in movies. Age of Extinction told a great story about the changes from the Battle of Chicago to now. Years have passed since the third movie at that point, and we got new characters on the line, some returning Transformers, do all this. The way that movie ends was like perfect, in my opinion.
So the way, okay, so mine might differ a little bit from you. So like, I enjoyed the Transformers franchise as a whole. I think the first movie, I think everybody agrees, yes, it was a little bit overdone, and yeah, it wasn't technically traditional to like the cartoon, but it was still pretty good. Like, it had a pretty formulaic plot, and it could be, what's the word? It was good. Like, the characters, like the human characters and the Transformers, you kind of got to know all of them. Yeah. It was a smallish cast. Now, everybody, I'd say just about everybody I've talked with, like, just about doesn't really like the second one. It's because the second one tried doing what the first one did on a grander scale, but gave us characters and dialogue that was just so stupid, for lack of a better word.
A lot of the dialogue in Revenge of the Fallen was forced.
Yeah, it had some good action sequences, like the Force fight with Optimus Prime, Megatron.
Oh yeah, the desert fight is one of my favorites in that movie.
That's one of the best in the series. Even the whole end fight against Devastator and the Fallen, like again, Michael Bay does such a great job with some of the fight scene setups. And yeah, I always hear the flack about how you can't tell what's going on, but I'm like, I mean, it's Transformers. Like,
but I see that, and that's the thing. The argument that if in a fight scene you don't know what's going on, it is confusing if it's humans.
Yeah.
However, if you think about it, you got to think about it from a Transformers perspective.
Yeah.
There's this big old mosh pit of a fight between these giant machines going at it. Do you really think even they know what's going on 100%?
Yeah, that are are made of parts and like bits, pieces, and everything.
I enjoyed throughout the entire series that Michael Bay's done. The fight scenes are so like confusing and like they're not all like that. You can understand what's going on. Like, you get a general idea of what's happening.
Yeah, it's because what people I think get the complaint about is that there's so much going on. It's like I just want to see the fight, and I'm like, and then people make callbacks to like it wasn't this confusing in the cartoon series. I'm like, yeah, but also the Transformers were essentially cardboard boxes. Like,
they had to change it up for a movie, you know?
Punch the box and everything. It's kind of hard because in animation you can make something look like very simple and then have it do something very complicated and then look simple again. But in movie, it just didn't translate well. Then, like for me, I'm not gonna lie, like I love the first one, but I really enjoyed the third one, Dark of the Moon. I thought Dark of the Moon was I thought they were gonna end it at Dark of the Moon because it concluded everything. Here's my problem with the Michael Bay series is that it's trying to add new things every movie. The first one had to do with the Allspark and had to do with the Decepticons. Megatron was the big bad. The second movie then introduces the Fallen and says, oh wait, Megatron was not actually the big bad. The Fallen was. Megatron's our secondary villain. Which, I'm just going to say, because I'm a villains, connoisseur, and Megatron has always been the main villain in Transformers, and Starscream's always been second.
Yeah.
But in the movies, they make Megatron Starscream. And Starscream, they make him like every other grunt in the movie that's a Decepticon, which kind of bugged me. And then going on to the third one, you find out, oh, okay, so after the Fallen dies, then you find out, oh, Sentinel Prime. Well, Sentinel Prime betraying the Autobots. And so then he becomes like the Decepticon leader for a while, and Megatron just kind of sitting off to the side. And their whole plan for all three movies, which it seemed like, was the Decepticons wanted to rebuild Cybertron and have Earth as a slave force, which made sense. Then we had the interesting troublemaker of Age of Extinction, which brought in a weird element. Okay, so as much as I'm just gonna come off of the record here. As much as I love the Dinobots in the movie.
Which were in it for a total of, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
In a 2.5-hour movie.
Yes, they were shoehorned in because of an explanation that didn't need to be there. So their explanation at the beginning of the movie, which was never brought up anywhere else, was, so the Transformers used to come to Earth and kill the dinosaurs so they could get the stuff to make Transformers. That was essentially their whole plot, which is what led into there being Dinobots. That didn't make any sense to me, for one. And then the Dinobots came at the very end of the movie, and that was the whole movie's marketing, was the Dinobots, and seeing Optimus Prime on a fire-breathing T-Rex. And it was only both those scenes together mounted to 20 minutes. Again, I kind of like the fact that they were calling back to the Chicago, and they were like, remember Chicago and everything from the third movie. But the plot of it just didn't make any sense, because then you brought in Lockdown, and Lockdown was working for supposedly the creator of the Transformers. And then he's like, oh, we have a mission now that you think it's just Autobots and Decepticons. Well, there's a third party. And I'm like, but guys, it's always been the Autobots and the Decepticons. Why are we adding a third party in the mix? I was like, when I watch the Transformers, I don't think about the existentialism of knowing where the Transformers came from. I'm just like, I want to see two warring factions, and I want to see the humans deal with it. It was written. It was written out for you, and I don't understand why Michael Bay went for it. And then this fifth one. So this fifth one, the issue that I have with it is that it added a new element that didn't even be there. Okay, so not only do we know that the Transformers killed the dinosaurs, but that they also stayed on Earth in the Middle Ages, throughout World War II, they stayed on Earth all this time to protect it from inevitably, the main villain, who I can't even remember her name. She's such a forgettable villain, because it's basically like, you know how we've been doing this whole, she's essentially Transformers Enchantress, honestly, in my opinion. And that's all, and she's basically leading up to the big one, which is the one they haven't even mentioned once in any of the movies except for this one, which is Unicron.
Yeah.
And that's the
that's what
point of it all. Like, they're making these movies, like this one. I think what made, because I've talked with a couple people who liked it, and I talked about people who didn't like it. And from what I got, the people who didn't like it just didn't like the fact that this movie was trying to make all of the other movies lead up to this point, when clearly, if you watch the first three and don't watch Age of Extinction, the third one ends perfectly. It ends... It
wraps everything up
trilogy.
well.
It wraps everything up, and then when you do Age of Extinction, this is like a new trilogy, but the problem is they continue the story. They didn't, like, establish, like, oh, Age of Extinction is a new chapter. They were just like, Age of Extinction happens right after 3, and I was like, oh, so if you watch the first one all the way to 5, this should be a coherent story. But it's not, because if you watch the third one, it ends.
Well, that's
and then Age of Extinction.
That's what I wanted to talk about. That's the main reason that, I wanted to kind of tie this into the Dark Tower and the Mummy, about how they were trying to condense everything. Transformers is guilty of this, because going into this, everyone was like, okay, this is Michael Bay's last film. Like, this is Michael Bay's last time directing Transformers. His last film is going to do. So we're thinking, at least me, I was going in, okay, this may be his last Transformers movie, that's fine. Wrap up his little saga. Wrap it up here, and then start fresh. But instead of doing that, it ended on a very, very awkward cliffhanger, mind you. It tried to introduce this character, and then it tried to introduce this whole new history where, oh, did you know that Transformers were in World War II, specifically Bumblebee, the one who you thought came in just back in 2007? No, it was implementing all these different things, when in reality, if it would have just told a good story from the end of Age of Extinction to the end of 5, if it would have told a good story to wrap everything up, it would have gone better. There still would have been flack because it's a Transformers movie, and from the first one to now, they don't have the best records, like, critically, but...
Yeah.
The thing I don't like about this movie, and that's what I wanted to kind of tie in about flops this summer, is that instead of trying to tell a good story, which Spider-Man Homecoming did, which Atomic Blonde did, which that was a spy movie and had a decent story, better story than Transformers in my opinion, because it wasn't trying to implement anything and hint at anything. It was just trying to, the goal was to make a good movie.
Yeah, it was to make a movie first and make an experience.
Exactly.
It was supposed to feel something. That's what movies need to do.
And that's why I think these movies were all flops, because the thing is, you also got to think, it also makes me wonder, do these people making these movies, do they understand that people who are going to see them, some people may not have read the book, i.e. The Dark Tower. Some people people may not be familiar with other monsters. I mean, not as familiar as Universal expects them to be with the Wolfman or any of these other or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. If you haven't heard about, I mean, everyone's heard about the book, but I guarantee you not everyone on this planet has read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So they're seeing this thing, and they're seeing Russell Crowe's character in this movie, and they're like, wait a minute. He's turning into like this monster now. Who is that? I don't understand it. This and that. It was so confusing for a general audience, when in fact,
especially for a movie that wasn't marketing itself as a. See, the thing is, all of those movies. That's the thing. What do you call them? They're Universal monsters. What movies were they in? Horror movies. And this movie was marketing itself as an action movie. And now, okay, people can make the argument to say that the first Mummy movies with
Brendan Fraser.
I can't remember his name. Brendan Fraser. Those were marketed as kind of action horror. And if you watch the first one's pretty scary. I mean, again, like the effects aged okay and everything like that, but it's marketed as a horror movie that happens to be adventure. Now, in the second movie, they went more adventure and silly with it, but those movies were still kind of good. It brought an environment to it. This movie, it didn't do that. It didn't suck you in. Like, weirdly enough, not too many people know this, but like, because apparently Universal has done all in their power to make sure it's kind of forgotten, which is weird. But if you remember, like Dracula Untold,
Mhm.
Dracula Untold was supposed to be the launch pad for this universe.
But that movie just didn't do well enough.
Yeah, the issue, it just didn't do well. But that movie, to me, when I saw it, I enjoyed it so much more because it didn't. It ended. I mean, I know how much you like Iron Man, but just hear me out on this. It kind of ended like the first Iron Man movie. It was Iron Man's movie. It was Dracula's movie, and then at the very, very, very last minute, it was like, hey, just a hint about what's to come. And because then at the end of the movie, he's lived for centuries. So at the end of the movie, he's in present day. And then at present day, you're like, oh, so wait, he's in present day right now. So that, I have a feeling what originally was happening was they were going to lead that to the Mummy. Because they always had the Mummy was going to come after Dracula.
Yeah.
And since the Mummy takes place in present day, it's like, the Mummy takes place in present day, it made sense because Dracula was way back when, before any of these people existed. And then at the very end, when it's in present day, the Mummy's now in present day, so it made sense. But because that movie didn't do too well, they were like, all right, well, we're scrapping that. The Mummy is going to be our launch pad. The problem with it is, because you didn't have one movie to fill you in, like if Dracula would have stayed, you would have had one movie to kind of lead you into the Mummy, and then it would have made a little bit less, it would have been a little bit of a less annoyance to have the Mummy shoehorn in all of the guff.
Exactly. And I've seen Dracula Untold, and I know what you mean. And it's funny that you bring up the first Iron Man, because I think we were talking about this the other day. That's when I was like, these movies are trying to copy the success of Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC Extended Universe, all that. But if you look at it, even if you look at Iron Man, Man of Steel, both were well, Iron Man, if you know, like you said, the Incredible Hulk was, the first movie to come out, and that introduced, and even that movie, but Iron Man did it.
Both Iron Man and Hulk came out at the same time, and whichever one was going to be better, that was Marvel's plan of going, all right, this is our launch pad. The other one was just going to be a movie, and Iron Man happened to win it out, which was actually kind of strange because that was the one that they betted against. They were like, oh, Incredible Hulk's going to do the best. And Iron Man just was like a success. So they were like, well, this is the guy we're launching off of. And like what you were going to say, or kind of what you were going to say was like, the thing about Man of Steel and Iron Man, they were movies about, they were just
movies that told their own unique story.
That told their own
ever so slightly hinted that, hey, this isn't our one and only movie. There's going to be more, heads up. Iron Man did it. Oh, I remember. Actually, the first time I saw Iron Man, I didn't... Back then, no one stayed till after the credits. And no one did. It wasn't... like back then, no one knew... Man, it's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
I say back then, it's like, man, that was just back in...
Yeah, you're dating us a little bit, because I still remember when people were like, hey, did you stick around for the credits? And I'm like,
what?
No, why would I? And then they're like, there's a scene at the end. What? And now if you tell somebody, hey, like, you want to leave it? Like, no, you got to wait. Got to wait all the way to the end.
Marvel has, like, embedded it in our brain, like, hey, stay at the end of the credits for, like, even if it's not a Marvel movie, just stay till the end, because, But that's the thing. Iron Man did it to perfection. Even Man of Steel did the slightest hints. But like it was like you were saying, each are their own movie about that respective character. Like, imagine, like, it would have been just a big cluster if in Iron Man they took what the Mummy did and was like, and tried every opportunity to drop a Captain America in there or a Thor. And it would have been really weird.
It would have been like if Iron Man 2 was the first movie. Actually, I can do this analogy for you. So, if Universal would have started out with Dracula, let's have Man of Steel, Iron Man, Dracula. So and then the sequels to those were Batman v Superman, Iron Man 2, and The Mummy. Now, what Universal did was they scrapped Dracula and put the Mummy first. So that would be like if Marvel and DC took Man of Steel and Iron Man and made BVS and Iron Man 2 their first movies. Because if those would have been the two first movies, people would have lost their minds because, for one, I mean, on DC side, we would have been introduced to Superman and Batman on the first movie, and
Wonder Woman,
on the first movie, and we would have been like, this is too much. Like, I just want to get to know these characters. And Iron Man 2 introduced Black Widow, introduced more Nick Fury, introduced more S.H.I.E.L.D., introduced War Machine. It was like, that's what the Mummy 2, that's what the Mummy did. And the Mummy just, it didn't understand
it didn't
that
work
it needed
because
to back up.
Yeah, because we weren't connected to Tom Cruise's character going into this movie. In the movie, he comes off as like this rogue like he's a treasure hunter, and of course, and most of the time there's like that stereotype where like treasure hunters are like selfish and all this kind of stuff, whatever. Like, even I'm watching it, I'm like, you know what, I don't care about your character at all. And then the fact that you're gonna try to rush in all these other characters, it just, we could literally like keep going on about this, like on and on about how like the Mummy just didn't, you know. Let's
just a segue, because I just wanted to segue into something else that it kind of touches upon the same thing. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tell No Tales.
Okay, okay, so I saw it, and basically what I thought about it was I saw the fifth one, and in my mind I'm thinking, okay, what was the point of the fourth movie? Disney, what were you thinking there? That was a little odd. And like I told you, and for those of you that haven't seen the movie, you can go definitely watch the first three, because in my opinion those movies get better as they go on. And then the fourth one happens, plops, and then
that's kind of, because I know we share the same agreements of those Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I know a lot of people don't really like the third one, because I think
that's a shot to the heart, man. I love the third movie.
To me, my favorite is Dead Man's Chest, the second one. That's my favorite. The third one, just, I think people have less of an issue nowadays with it, because that one, it kind of needed to happen. It needed to finish the story. It needed to finish the trilogy. So, like, it kind of had the third movie trope of, like, it needed to tie all the ends together. So it needed to happen. Now, the fourth one on Stranger Tides, it was weird, because Stranger Tides, the problem with it was that it just kind of focused on Jack. And, you know, Johnny Depp is an amazing actor, and Jack Sparrow is an awesome character, but he just couldn't save this movie. Oddly enough, the only thing in that movie that I found enjoyable, I only found two things enjoyable. One was Jack Sparrow.
Of course.
Because, honestly, he's the saving grace of the movies. Like, in all of its weird times, and even some of its slow issues in most of the movies, he's always the constant. Yeah, he might not be able to save the movie, but he's always done really well. And Johnny Depp always puts 100. And the other thing was Blackbeard, but that's only just because I like villains. Like, but even his motivations of sorts kind of got skewed. It seemed like they were shoehorning him in. They just wanted another, like, pirate legend in the movie.
They did, and the thing
I forgot Barbossa. Barbossa is one of my favorite characters, and even he couldn't save Stranger Tides, even though he kind of felt shoehorned in as well. And this movie, though, like, so I've heard weird things about it. I've heard that it calls back to the first movie, which is nice, but I heard that it has kind of the same vibe like the first one did, because the first one was like an adventure horror of sorts.
The fourth one is like, you know, at floor length. And then the fifth one just comes up, redeems the series with these new and unique characters, adds a new story to it. And like you said, it called back to the original trilogy, which I do like. And that's the thing. See, I like the fifth movie. I thought it was good.
I just thought, like, the series just kind of needed to... It just needed to kind of... It's weird, because it's one of its most, like, popular franchises. Yeah, mm-hmm. And I hate to kind of see it go, but it's like they're really reaching at the bottom of the barrel here, because, hey, just confirm something for me. Did this have to do with finding a trident?
Yes. The whole movie was surrounded around... The whole movie was surrounded around finding Poseidon's trident.
Neptune's trident? Or is Poseidon? Was Poseidon or Neptune?
They use the Greek term.
Okay, Poseidon's trident. So, okay, whenever I heard that plot point, I was like, because weirdly enough, I wonder if the callback, since I haven't even seen the movie, was one of the callbacks the fact that Blackbeard's sword was supposedly made with a part of the trident? Because that was something that was mentioned in the fourth movie. They said that's why his sword could do all that stuff, was because it was made from part of Poseidon's trident.
Well,
did that happen to have a callback?
To answer that, basically the reason they were so Will Turner's son is basically the one who's trying to find the trident, because the trident can break every curse at sea. He's trying to free his father.
Yeah.
He doesn't want his father to be gone for what is it? I think 10 years.
10 years and then one day on shore.
He wants to end that.
One day.
That's why he goes after it. And then like everyone's like trying to find the trident for a different reason. But I don't remember there ever them hinting at Blackbeard's sword being like having a part of it. That it never comes into play in the 5th movie, so I don't think it was like a big major thing, you know.
Like because my thing was like in the 4th one, whenever they said that the sword was made of his trident, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Like I mean, like again, like my suspense of disbelief could be there for this, but I thought, oh, it'd just kind of be cool if like the sword was just kind of magical, and that was just what people said. But then whenever I read the plot synopsis back when it was like being rumored about like the trident of Poseidon, I was like, really? You had to go with this? Like, out of all of the pirate things to do, like Poseidon's trident, really? Like you're acknowledging that there are Greek gods in this universe? Like, I mean, we already had Calypso, and I guess that was fine, but I'm like, then where's, like, it opened up a weird Greek mythology thing with me, and I was like, guys, like, I'm sorry, Johnny Depp, like, you're fantastic, and I'm sure you love this franchise and love this character, but this series just needs to kind of die.
I mean, I agree. To segue and kind of wrap up the podcast today, guys, we're gonna, and look, we can bash movies and give reasons for it, and I want to go through to end it off here. We talked about all the bad movies, but let's talk about the good. You told me that your top 3 of the summer was Wonder Woman, War for the Planet of the Apes, and Guardians 2. Fantastic list, by the way. Actually, my list is 2 out of 3 of yours. Like I have the same like 2 of the same movies you do on my list, with the exception of 1. And I know, because you every time we've talked, you mentioned it. From what I can tell, your favorite movie this summer was Wonder Woman.
I'm in love with Wonder Woman.
Even though, like, and I remember, because I remember this, the beginning of the summer, because me and you were looking forward to War for the Planet of the Apes, which ended up being fantastic, as we knew. But yeah, and my list was, with the exception of 1, like I said, my top 3 were Wonder Woman, War for the Planet of the Apes, and Baby Driver. And we're gonna save Wonder Woman for last, because I know you like. We're gonna save that for last, so you can talk a lot about it, what was good about it. But the success of Baby Driver, I brought that one up, and that's why it's on my top 3, simply because everyone saw the trailer for it, didn't think anything of it, and it ended up being one of the best movies of the summer. Literally, because here's my explanation for it. Definitely, if you haven't seen it, I know I did a review on this on my podcast prior to this. What made it so good, and Guardians does this well too, the first one and the second one. Movies nowadays are trying their hardest and being very successful at it, mind you, too, with implementing music in the most natural of ways. The gimmick in Baby Driver is that it's this guy, it's like this teenager, maybe lower 20s. He's a getaway driver for this like criminal organization, and the thing about him is that the way he's like this really talented driver, but what fuels that, I guess pun not intended, in his driving, is that he listens to this music that, when he was a kid, he was listening to music when he endured this like traumatic event, and so he listens to music all the time, which I love. And I'm a sucker if a movie has a good soundtrack. Oh, I love it instantly. And this movie had a good soundtrack and introduced it and had the music in scenes that fit like perfectly. Guardians does this too, and Guardians was one of your top 3 as well. But like I included Baby Driver on there because it was just like that movie that just blew. Like anyone who saw it was going in like, okay, I'll go see it. It's like an action movie, and just walked out like, whoa, that was awesome. That was like, it blew me away.
Yeah, like I didn't see Baby Driver, but I heard that it was like really good, and like you're not even the first one to mention the fact that it kind of felt like Guardians, especially with the music and stuff like that. And going into Guardians of the Galaxy, since that was the only one that I had different from you, I enjoyed that movie because it did everything that a good sequel should do. It provided another story, made it its own, but at the same time paid tribute to the first one. And out of all the Marvel movies, like, Marvel doesn't also, like, I mean, excuse me, Marvel gods, but they don't always have the best track record for making sequel movies to the first one. I mean, with the exception of Winter Soldier for Captain America, most of the movies are kind of, they're okay, they pass. They kind of go into a formulaic kind of trope.
Yeah.
Guardians, however, it just made a good story, and it made a story that didn't fall into the same trap of repeating itself. Because in the first one, they're kind of after an Infinity Stone, but in this one, they're not. In this one, it's really just Peter Quill and his dad that are
That's
just
what I liked about this movie.
It felt like a family story.
And that's the thing. Wasn't Infinity Stone mentioned in this?
I think it was, and this was another thing, because there was a theory going around for a while that this movie was going to be the one to have the other Infinity Stone, but this one didn't. And it's weird kind of thinking about it, because this was a cosmic movie, and you would have thought that you would have had a cosmic...
Yeah, well, especially since the first one introduced the Power Stone, you would think everyone was thinking, okay, maybe we'll get like maybe a hint at the Soul Gem, but and that's the thing. I did like it. A lot of people, the general consensus, with the exception of a few, were saying that this one surpassed the first one. The first one, in some people's eyes, that I know personally, will always be the best, which is understandable. I mean, I'm not going to bash anyone for that.
It was the first one that did it, because the second one, I mean, that's the thing with sequels, is that there's a balance of making the sequel better, because you want to up the first one, but then at the same time, like, there's nothing you have to try to introduce new things without introducing the characters that you love. So it's just kind of getting to know them. Like, one thing that they did really well, that I think the second one did phenomenal with, was that it really expanded Michael Rooker's character, Yondu.
One of my favorites.
And Yondu in this movie is so good. Like, you just feel for him, you like him, and they just expanded his character, which was really well done. Because as much as he's kind of likable and you get to know him in the first one, in this one they just expand his role. For the most part, like, Nebula was another one that got way more story devoted to her in this one than the first one. So what he did was, it's kind of fun. Like, I think the success of this movie came from was the fact that they had these characters that you grew to love and understand in the first one. And in this one, they know. I think Marvel finally was like, we know you know these characters, so now why don't you get to know the other ones? And then brought all the secondary characters in and got to know them. And the beauty of it was that you kind of knew. It's like what they did with the Avengers. They didn't spend time in the Avengers really getting to know people. Like, it was like you already knew them because you've already seen these movies. Yeah. And that's one thing I think Marvel does really well. And, like, not to kind of call back and bash on, Pirates and Transformers and The Mummy, is that those movies just kind of, they treat you as if this is the first movie you're seeing all the time. Whereas Marvel doesn't do that. Marvel just, like, if you're watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 without watching the first one,
lost.
Something must be wrong with you. Yeah, you're at loss. Like, Marvel's going to assume that you've seen the first one and you're going to see the second.
And it's a good idea on their end, because it does say like, look, we make other, go check out this other movie to kind of understand it. And like you were saying with the fact that they make it like you gave an example of Pirates, was that every movie makes it to where you've seen it for the first time. That's a good and a bad thing, and I want to save that for another day. But basically, because I think it's like, I say it's a good thing. It's a bad thing, for the reasons you said. The dedicated fans get rewarded in Guardians 2, I feel. The reason I think it's good that they do like that Pirates does this in movies, that follow that formula. It's this thing that these people do just so that way. Because the thing is, like, when a lot of people, like, the main goal when you make a movie is to make money. You want to market to as many people as you can. And then with Pirates 5, I mean, yeah, if you haven't seen the other ones, then you're probably not going to see this one. But it makes it watchable for people who just want to go watch it, who just want to go see a Pirates movie. They don't want to go spend the extra, with all the movies total, 8+ hours to go watch the other 4 or whatever. They can just go watch it. They can enjoy it. They may not understand the minute details that are hidden there, but they'll enjoy themselves. And, with Guardians 2, if you haven't seen the first one, like I said, you're going to be totally lost. You're not going to understand anything. It's a good and a bad thing, that movies do that. And finally, saving the best for last, Wonder Woman.
These two monsters, like monster movies, I'm telling you. Like, War of the Planet of the Apes and Wonder Woman, by far. And I know we've had discussions about this.
Oh, yeah.
These movies
were
just, for lack of a better word, they were just awesome. Like, they did everything right. And it's so, okay, so I'm going to be, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to be flip-flopping between them because they do so many things similar that they work. I know one thing, going to Wonder Woman, just to get the elephant out of the room, like, people are going, like, just for DC's point, like, in the cinematic universe that they're building. This movie was what DC needed. I know that, like, I know you're a big Marvel fan. I know
that I am.
I'm a DC fan. I love Marvel, though. Like, I'm very much, like, if people were to ask me, which one do you like more, I'd be like, honestly, I like both. I like DC characters just a bit more than Marvel characters.
That's understandable, yeah.
Yeah, but as far as their movies go, I like them all. Like, I know we've had our discussions, and I know people have very strong opinions on the internet about how the DC films are doing. And, I mean, I love the DC films. I think they're still really good. I have my issues with them. But Wonder Woman just knocked it out of the park. Like, I mean, I was reading an article not about 2 weeks ago that Wonder Woman passed up Guardians of the Galaxy in its box office, and then
it's crazy. Yeah, it was
completely overshadowed Spider-Man, and the movie came out before Spider-Man. Like, that's the crazy thing, was that, like, kind of going back to Spider-Man a little bit from earlier. Spider-Man, weirdly enough, didn't do as well as Marvel wanted it to, and it was because of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman just kind of took the superhero genre this summer. Like, it literally, Wonder Woman held it out for so long that Spider-Man just kind of, like, it got batted down a little bit, and then to segue into the other movie, War of the Planet of the Apes, like, buried Spider-Man just from the viewings of, like, that weekend. And
so, yeah, and I mean, that's my thing, and to wrap up here, because we're gonna have to end it here.
Yeah.
My closing argument is that Spider-Man was just released not at a good time.
It was between a rock and a hard place, and it just didn't have room to grow.
It was kind of weird too, because this is the first MCU movie. This is the first MCU movie to be released in the dead center of summer. Because Guardians was the only one to be released in the summer, and that was May. May's like May, in my opinion, is Marvel's month. I mean, because we've gotten both Avengers in May, we've gotten Guardians in May, and all those movies have done well. Spider-Man this year was just released at a bad time, which it was overshadowed by War and Wonder Woman. But for my closing statement, Wonder Woman is by far the best DC movie in my opinion. It saved it.
Wonder Woman might be like, because there's even talks about Wonder Woman might be the best superhero film. Like it's passing out. It's a close. I know Dark Knight, which is another DC property, holds that title for the best superhero film. But Wonder Woman might pass that up, and that's insane to me because Wonder Woman just, for those who haven't seen it or for those that need to see it, Wonder Woman connects to you on such a level that a lot of superhero movies don't nowadays. It's weird. It's a very emotional experience, and for those who are kind of worried, because I know some people are kind of iffy about Gal Gadot's, or Gal Gadot, I think is actually Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, she's phenomenal.
She was meant to play that role.
She was meant to play that role, and I'm telling you, after you watch the movie, I give it when she comes on screen, give 10 minutes of screen time with her, you'll fall in love with her. And just to go to War of the Planet of the Apes real quick, War of the Planet of the Apes does that as well. The thing about Wonder Woman and War of the Planet of the Apes that I think does so well is movies are a visual experience. They're a visual media, and those movies are visually spectacular and amazing. I think War of the Planet of the Apes gives you such a visual, just a visual experience of just amazingness, and without that much dialogue. And Wonder Woman, for the most part, yes, it's got its really good dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's a really good script, but visually and it's just stunning. And I can tell you straight up, watching both those movies made me teary-eyed, and I did shed a couple tears. And it's kind of funny because Logan had come out early. Logan came out
in March this year.
In March, yeah. Logan came out in March. This year has been weird for me because I've watched 3 movies in theaters, Logan, Wonder Woman, War of the Planet of the Apes, that have made me cry. And that does not happen. I might get one movie that makes me cry every 5 years, but I've had 3. And I'm I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and I'm just getting more emotional, but...
it does. It does its job.
All
those movies, including Logan, that came out in the spring, which is why we didn't touch on it today. It does its job. Wonder Woman does its job of delivering a message. War does a fantastic job of delivering the message it relays, and overlying throughout the movie. Yeah. But with all that said, I enjoyed both the movies, for the same reasons. My big, to wrap up here, both Wonder Woman and War for the Planet of the Apes, like you said, just visually stunning movies.
Visually stunning.
Told great stories.
Character, great. Story-wise, fantastic. And to kind of bring a point that you mentioned earlier, these are 2 of the best examples of movies that were movies first and then expansions later.
Exactly.
Because Wonder Woman, because for those of you concerned, I know people don't like how DC shoes in some stuff, and Wonder Woman does not do that. Wonder Woman is its own movie and then barely touches upon everything else, towards the end, towards the beginning.
Even though it's a continuation.
Yes, it is a continuation. And it's kind of crazy to think about it because it did so well. And then War of the Planet of the Apes, even being the third installment of a trilogy, it is its own movie. It doesn't it makes callbacks and some callbacks and some references to the other ones, but in of itself, it's its own movie and it stands on its own of its own movie. Actually, if you watch, even without watching the first 2, and same with Wonder Woman, if you didn't watch the previous movies and you just watched these movies, you would still understand everything and still go out going, that was a fantastic
definitely. War for the Planet of the Apes even does the audience a favor by saying, in the first movie, this happened. In the second movie, this happened.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
And I love that. But people, some people don't like that because it's we'll just go watch the movie. Not everyone has the opportunity to watch the other movie. And it kind of gives a,
And even Dawn kind of... sets it up at the beginning. Even Dawn kind of sets it up at the beginning where it's this happened. The epidemic happened, humans wiped out and everything, and it does that little, the global kind of red and everything like that. And I'm that's great, because if you watch the first one, if you watch Rise is its own movie. If you watch Dawn explains what happened in Rise at the very beginning, so you're caught up to speed. And then, like you said, this movie catches you up to speed with the first two, so they're all on their own great movies. And then, like I said, Wonder Woman is just its own movie. It's like, it's so weird because it's a sequel to to BVS.
Yeah.
But it's a continuation of that, but it's its own movie. And it's just, I'm not, like, I'll just coin the phrase, but, like, it brings back humanity, knowing that there are movies that are still coming out that are there to give people
a good
experience. Yeah, like,
you go to the movies, you have a good experience. That's what these movies do.
Yeah, exactly.
But, guys, ultimately, we want to know what you guys think. What was your favorite movie of the summer? What was your least favorite movie of the summer? Because I am very curious to know. Everyone has an opinion. Don't be afraid to share it. I love and encourage opinions on the channel. Go ahead and leave a comment. Go ahead and even mention me on Twitter with what your favorite or least favorite movie was. I would greatly appreciate that. Guys, if you enjoyed the podcast today, go ahead and drop a like if you did enjoy it. Also, if you have not done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel for more podcasts and videos coming you guys' way very, very soon. My man, Nick, thank you, and be sure to give a big thanks to Kirsten and Jordan for coming out today and talking about some movies with me today.
Well, we'll do. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking about movies.
All right, guys, well, we'll see you in the next video, and until then, peace out.